committee of jurisdiction, I'm not on the committee. Okay? But that being said, I have concerns about Russia. I have concerns about the administration's policy towards Russia. And here's why. If you listen to Donald Trump, one of the reasons why he got elected is, you can certainly say whether you agree with him or not, everything he does is pretty unscripted, right? I mean, he kind of stands up there and says things, and even I cringe sometimes about it, but that appealed to millions of Americans. So many people. So with respect to Russia, in my opinion, he's been overly accommodating of Putin. Putin's a thug and a murderer, right? And the failure to release tax returns certainly raises questions in my mind. And so here's what's going to happen on Russia. Here's what's going to happen on Russia.
I know who you are.
I don't go down. Here's what's going to happen on Russia. Here's what's going to happen on Russia. The House and Senate committees are continuing to investigate. They've already come out recently. The two chairs of the committees have said there's no evidence of wiretapping.
Do you have it on mic or line? And it's mic.
So they're going to continue to investigate. If they find some kind of connection to Russia beyond what's already out there, I fully expect that we'll continue to look at it and put pressure. Republicans and Democrats alike will put pressure on the administration to explain why, if they have any connection to Russia.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we hear his answers. Okay, we're sitting at 9 right now.
About Russia, and they're not a friend of ours, and the administration between the Secretary of State and the President seem to think they are, and I don't think they are. So we're going to watch it. A good example of someone holding the administration accountable, that is John McCain.
All right, Congressman, the next question is, why is it necessary to make so many cuts to fund the military? We've already spent more than 7 other countries combined. These cuts are just a tax bill.
So, you know, this is my second term, and and so one of the things that's, you know, members of Congress do 3 things on a typical day. We have a couple of vote series. We have committee hearings, which by and large are not a great use of our time because they're not very helpful in terms of informing you on issues. That's not the purpose many times, unfortunately. But the third thing we do is we meet with people in the office. So this week in D.C., in between votes and committee hearings, I had on Wednesday I had 19 meetings, 15-minute meetings with different groups, and the meetings are the best part of the job because you sit down with someone who's come in. I met with someone from the Rare Disease Association saying we need to. And various groups, there's 90% of the meetings are about one thing. All these groups are working on very worthwhile issues and problems facing our country and struggles, and it's all about one thing: they need more money. And that's the problem we have in this country, and that's why we're having, I think, a pretty lively debate about health care, is we don't have enough money. Okay? And so I'm going to answer. So this year we have this year we're going to have about a $600 billion deficit. And people talk about the national debt of $20 trillion. That's a problem. The real problem is something I mentioned earlier: the interest on that debt. It's like a bad adjustable rate mortgage. The interest rate goes from $200 billion a year to almost $1 trillion. So that being said, I support more funding for our military, and here's why. Here's why. Can anyone name one place in the world today that's better off than it was 8 years ago when President Obama took office? So let me tell you from my perspective what's happened in the world, and it's because our military is weaker than it's ever been before. here's what's happened. Here's what's happened. Here's what's happened, okay? China's building islands in the South China Sea. It's going to disrupt 40% of the world's shipping and trade. And China doesn't care what we think. Iran doesn't care what we think. They're busy violating the agreement already. North Korea, and this is under President Bush as well, he's to blame. North Korea is going to have a nuclear missile that can hit Seattle pretty soon. Russia feels like they can do whatever they want in Ukraine and the Baltics and the European Union. But we did make a new deal with Cuba, and we got absolutely nothing for it. So the world is unsafe because we got nothing for it. So without a strong military, we're not going to be able to have our friends support us, and our enemies will ignore us. Next question.
All right, Congressman, the next question is, candidate Trump stated during his campaign that the elites of the world control everything.
Can't hear your
What
question.
are you doing to stop this?
Can't hear the question.
Candidate Trump said that the elites of the world control everything. The elite people of the world control everything. What are you doing to stop it?
The elites of the world. The elites of the world?
Democracy.
My 24-year-old son has cancer, sir. I've been trying to speak with you for months to tell my story. Your assistant says you're not available. Your scheduling secretary says you're not available. You're in India. I want you to hear my story. When he was 22 years old, I got a call from the emergency room saying your son is bleeding out. He just graduated from college. He was looking for a full-time job. He didn't have one yet. He was in critical condition. He was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Fortunately, for the ACA who saved his life. Yes. My wife, he was able to stay on our health insurance.
Right.
I walk into the emergency room with my Blue Cross card. $400,000 later, they paid. Now he has a pre-existing condition, sir. I know you have said in writing you're against that. He now has a pre-existing condition. He's 26 years old. I know you said that.
So
Okay, wait a minute. I want you to tell us.
Everybody else has to put their card on a question.
You know something? My son has cancer.
So, let me answer you.
Congressman.
Yes, sir.
What I want you to commit to us, I've read everything that you've written. I've heard what they said on the papers. Commit to me and my friends that our families will have better insurance. My son could go to his doctor like he goes right now. He'll be able to get insurance when he's 27. I've paid over $750,000 in premiums in my lifetime. I support Congressman, yes or no? Are you committed to make sure that my son and all their sons have the coverage that they deserve? Health care is a human right.
I am. The answer, of course, yes. The answer is yes. Sir, I'm sorry about your son. I'd be happy to sit down and meet with you. And Chris, let's get his name. Well, I have to go back to Washington on Monday, so I'll come back from Washington. Come to Washington. That'd be fine, sir. Well, Monday we don't get there until the afternoon. Come Tuesday if you could.
What time on Tuesday?
We'll meet with Chris and get on my schedule on Tuesday. Fine.
You know something? My son's got cancer. What time on Tuesday?
I'm going to tell you in 1 minute. I'll tell you in 1 minute. No, tell me right now.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Lock her up. Lock her.
Any time between 10 and 2. Any time between 10 and 2, whatever works for you, sir.
10 o'clock.
All right. All right, the next question, Congressman, is why did you vote no on the resolution to make Trump release his tax return?
So, it was not a, I'm going to answer the questions. So, there was never a resolution, there was never a resolution specifically aimed at having Trump release his tax returns. What it was is a motion to recommit. It's a procedural motion tied to a bill totally unrelated to Trump's tax returns. A vote on that, a yes vote on the motion to recommit was really designed to take out the bill, that was the underlying bill, which as I recall dealt with veterans benefits. And so when a bill comes to the floor asking Trump to release his tax returns that specifically focused on that, I'll support it. But there's been never a bill, and the reason why that motion to recommit was introduced is so people could show up at town halls and ask that very question.
All right, sir, thank you. Next question is, where do you suggest constituents who will no longer qualify for Medicaid, where should they go get insurance?
So the question deals with constituents who no longer qualify for Medicaid. There's a problem on both respects. Please.
I am a mother. This is my son. This is his life. He is a physician. You don't know. This could be your son. This could be your daughter. We have no history of type 1 diabetes. He's going to have this for life. I can't go to D.C. and meet with you. I'm asking for a town hall again. I can't even meet with you. What are you going to do for my son? For AHCA. How do you stop it?
Well, so I see this. I'd be happy to meet with you here in the district, ma'am. So talk to my son. We're going to meet. We'll meet in my district office. Okay? So the question here's the problem that people don't want to acknowledge with respect to the Affordable Care Act. Your question relates to health care. I'm going to answer the question piece, I think. So, Doug, where are you, Doug? Go see Doug Teets. We'll get you on the calendar as soon as possible when I'm back from D.C. So, that's all I can offer you. That's all I can offer you. Or you can come with this gentleman on Tuesday. Be happy to meet you in D.C. So let's talk about Medicaid, right? Let's talk about Medicaid. So under the ACA, Medicaid got expanded, obviously, significantly, and hundreds of thousands of Michiganders have benefited from it, and millions of people across the country have, right? Now, what some of you that don't support the American Health Care Act don't want to hear is, under the ACA, the funding for Medicaid was going to change anyway in a few years. Okay? So the goal is for our solution, through lower premiums, lower health care costs, tax subsidies, health savings account, to make insurance more affordable so that people that are on the exchanges can afford it. Again, for all you that are booing, unless you agree with the underlying premise that the Affordable Care Act is collapsing, you're not going to agree with another word I say. Next question.
All right, so the next question is going to put the topic all together. Do you agree with the approximately 97% of climate scientists that climate change is real?
So, the question is what to do about the EPA, right? So, I think we have to keep studying climate change. I don't agree with all the cuts to the EPA, but I will tell you about as far as the EPA. Part of the problem with respect to this discussion regarding climate change is the Obama administration went so far out in terms of regulations of the EPA. So I met with a farmer who had the EPA after him because he had a pond, a little puddle in his front yard. And the EPA said that's the waters of the United States. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
All right, so the next question is kind of a repeat. The University of Michigan Institute for Healthcare Policy and Innovation economic impact of Michigan Medicaid expansion shows 600,000 low-income adults covered, 2.3 billion in economic activity, and 30,000 new jobs. It adds 413 million to the state budget. How will you vote on the ACA repeal and why?
So I heard yesterday that Governor Snyder came out against the American Health Care Act. And what you all need to know is this is a very, as you are well aware, this whole discussion regarding our solution in terms of the repeal and replacement of the ACA, this whole thing is very fluid because right now I don't believe the bill that's in front of us, can pass the Senate. And so I think that the Speaker and the President are taking a lot of feedback from a lot of people, and I think that some of the concerns the state has with respect to replacing the expansion with per capita grants it may or may not be adequate, and we have to figure out a way to make sure that people are able to use tax credits to subsidize the Medicaid. So to be determined, Bob. Go.
All right, so the next question is, what is your position on the integrity of President Trump regarding all of his tweets?
Well, Roosevelt used the radio and kind of revolutionized how the radio was used. Stick with me here. I think at the end of the day, you're not going to necessarily disagree with me on this one. So Roosevelt used the radio. Kennedy kind of revolutionized the TV. Trump uses tweets. I personally don't understand it. I wish candidly that he used Google a little more than tweets. But that being said, it certainly appealed to millions of Americans, such that he won. And my concern on the tweets, Bob, are in the foreign policy realm, and some of the tweets on the foreign policy, I don't get it. I don't think it's productive, and I wish that he would maybe be a little more traditional in terms of how he communicated. But again, 70 million Americans probably thought it was a good idea, so I might be wrong on that. Yeah.
All right, sir, the next question is again on health care. How will you help preserve Medicare?
Well, Medicare, again, is a program that millions of people rely on, and I mentioned earlier we have this budget problem because we don't have enough money to pay for everything we're doing. President Trump promised he wouldn't alter or change benefits available under Medicare. The Republican Congress supports him on that, and I'll stand with them on that and make sure it doesn't hurt anyone's benefits on that program.
All right, the next question is, and this is kind of interesting, how has the atmosphere in Washington changed since Trump won? It seems much more partisan with Democrats obstructing everything. What does it seem like to you?
So here's the problem here's the problem in Washington. Here's the problem in Washington the last 8 years, and the problem today in Washington. And this is going to be a long-term. For those of you that don't like, and I think there's a few of you that don't like the American Health Care Act. Let me tell you the long-term problem with that solution. Let me tell you the long-term problem with that solution. Just like the Affordable Care Act, if it's simply a partisan solution, and Democrats and Republicans aren't working together. So if you don't like the American Health Care Act, also known by some as Trump Care, here's the problem. It's not gonna survive the test of time, because a partisan solution, just like the Affordable Care Act, is doomed to fail. So the problem in Washington today is no one wants to work together to come up with good long-term solutions. With respect to the question, Bob, how has Washington changed?
Why are you voting for it?
Certainly people are more energized because it's a better solution than the ACA, sir. So people are people are more energized, and people are certainly more partisan, I think, than even when I got there 2 years ago. It's discouraging on some level because I think, and the comment and the question which you...
Your vote next Thursday on the 28th. How do you vote? Yes or no?
I'm going to answer the question. The issue, the question you raised is did the Democrats, I think I answered your question. My intention is, barring new information, I'll be supporting the American Health Care Act next Thursday.